And so for today's lesson, we'll talk about market structure. And you can just click on the December, January daily participation link and click on submit assignment, and the text box will open up and you'll be able to type in 3 significant things from today's lesson. So today we'll look at 3 of the market structures. And market structures are basically how we categorize entire industries. What are the variables like? How many producers are there? What are their prices like? The other factors include, do they make similar products, identical products? How much information is known, and so on. So there are 3 different types of market structure that we'll mention today. And the first one we'll mention is often called perfectly competitive, but as we've talked about before in economics, there's no such thing as perfect when it comes to human beings. So we can also just call it the competitive marketplace. In this marketplace, this is where competition is at its maximum. There are many producers. They all know about the subject material. Nothing is really secretive. If you have the assets, the money, the land, or the resources, the capital that you need, you can just go ahead and start producing. There's very few barriers to entering this industry or exiting it. Just, the money involved, basically. And you're going to end up making virtually identical products, the same as everyone else. That's another reason why there's no secrets. It's because this product is so well known that there's no secrets about it. And so you are just going to do your job, produce your products, and sell them on the marketplace. And hopefully people will come to you instead of other people, other businesses. Because there is such a large amount produced, the people in the perfect competition or competitive market are known as price takers. So much is produced, there's so much supply that the people who are demanding, the consumers, really have their pick. They don't have to go with you or anyone else because there's so much available to them. So they can basically name their own price. And so you have to go with whatever the marketplace is willing to give you. And so if you're in a perfectly competitive market or competitive market, you're known as a price taker. Farming is a good example of this. It's as close as we can get to perfect competition, with a few other exceptions. Someone who's growing cherry tomatoes is the same as someone else is growing that type of cherry tomato is the same as someone else is growing that type of cherry tomato, whether they're in Pennsylvania or California or Georgia or Montana or wherever they are. If you grow this particular type of cherry tomato, everyone has basically that same version. Maybe one's a little bit redder, maybe one's a little bit rounder, but they're all virtually identical. And so because there's such a large supply of these cherry tomatoes, when you go and you try to sell them, if you just raise your price just a little bit, just a cent, then the customers are going to go with somebody else. And if you drop it below the market price, you're not going to have enough to meet your costs. And so there is profit, accounting profit for farming, for instance, and other perfectly competitive markets, but there really isn't a lot more than that. And it's also to the point where so much production is happening that there's zero economic profit. That it doesn't really make any sense once you're in this business. Getting in or out isn't really going to provide you with a lot of different options, and you're not going to all of a sudden make more money one way or the other. And there's not a lot they can do to advertise to make their product seem a lot different to attract more customers. It's possible. I mean, you can trick people into just about anything, but it's unlikely. And so this is a perfectly competitive market or competitive market structure. Next one I'll mention is monopolistic competition. That's not the same as monopoly. The reason why it's called that is because just like perfect competition, there are many producers, but they don't make identical products. They make similar ones. And these similar products, each producer has their own little twist on something. And the example that I'm going to give you is clothing. Let's say you make shirts, and you see all kinds of new gimmicks that they come up with. And some of these are a little bit older, but wrinkle-free, stain-resistant, made out of recycled plastics or whatever the kind of component they have, but they have their little catch. So it seems like they have a monopoly on their particular version of a shirt. So that's why it's called monopolistic competitions. It's not really monopolistic because there are other shirts you can go get, but their particular brand, their particular style or cut or stitching or whatever the reasoning is, they have a little tiny monopoly over. And so because of that, they can make their own prices, but they can't be too far out of range. Unlike the perfectly competitive market, they can charge a few dollars more because there are going to be people that are attracted to their particular type of shirt. And they're going to say, wow, I really like this one, so I'm willing to pay a few dollars more. They can't change a lot. They can't charge a lot more, but they can change a little bit more. And because of that, they can make their own prices a little bit, at least in comparison to a perfectly competitive market. That being said, a lot of the information about making a shirt is known, but you have to come up with your own idea about how this shirt should be made, so that way you can have your own little specialized version that people will be attracted to. Also, it makes a lot more sense to advertise when it comes to monopolistic competition, because you have your own little version and you got to let people know about it. The last one that I'll talk about will be oligopolies. Oligopolies are similar to monopolistic competition, and then they produce similar products, and they have to advertise to let people know about it. But the difference is there's very few producers. There's usually 3, 4, 5, 6, something like that. There's not hundreds or thousands of producers. There's few. And the reason why is because the example I'm giving you here is a good reason for this. Automobile manufacturers. There's few automobile manufacturers within the United States. There's only 3 major ones. In the world, there's only a few dozen. And they, of course, have their own little secrets that they keep, usually through patents, technological secrets. We have our air conditioner work this certain way that's different than everyone else's, and we're going to patent it so no one else can copy. We have our own safety requirements. We have our own little touch screen on the monitor. They introduce all kinds of little facets to try to give them a gimmick to make their car seem different, and they are going to try to protect that with secrets. And plus, it's obviously expensive to enter this marketplace. There are a lot of barriers to entry, huge production costs, huge sunk costs that you're going to have. You're going to buy all this machinery to help make the equipment for the cars, and you can't exactly say, well, we changed our mind, let's sell off all this assembly line equipment we just bought. You can't do that. And so there are a lot of expensive entrance costs to this, and it's expensive to leave the industry too. And so there are a lot of barriers to entry and exit. Because they do have their own little twists, their own little versions of a sedan or a pickup truck, they can, as long as they advertise well and attract the customers, they can charge a little bit more. So they are also price makers when it comes to what they can actually put as a price charge to the consumer.